Well, hey, welcome back, everybody, to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ. He is Steve. And Andor makes its way onto Disney Plus on September 29th, 2022. We're going to be going right into our topic of the day, which is the Andor show impressions. So there's no need to fast forward. What are you chuckling about? I didn't realize I was super funny.
It was kind of like, well, this is what we're going to talk about, and today we're going to talk about it.
That's what you call setting it up for the layup there, Steve.
Ooh, it's never good at basketball, though.
And anywho, okay, so this show finally made its debut. It was debuted, or I should say it was delayed.
Right.
Initially. It was supposed to come out in the summertime, is that right?
Yes, actually, I think it was supposed to come out a while ago, honestly.
I don't remember exactly like when it was supposed to come out, but I know it got delayed by a few months or something.
Probably by COVID, Rosa.
I think they did like a rescheduling, shifting of, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
The point is that it was rescheduled to come out in September, and
We got it.
here we are. So they decided to drop the first 3 episodes onto us. So that translates into roughly, I don't know, about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes worth of watching
Yeah.
thus far. So what are your thoughts on it after seeing the first 3 episodes?
Well, Russ, it feels like the adults are writing the show now.
The adults are writing the show.
You know what I mean, Raj? It's not all about, it's like the writing is better. It's not like, we're just trying to throw a movie at you and put a Star Wars stamp and go, like it, or we won't like you. So, but it does feel like this is someone else's, like, different director, different vision in the Star Wars vein, but not the Star Wars that we've grown up with. But that's okay. Like, I'm perfectly happy being in this world because it feels like they're respecting, like, the lore and, the property and everything. And that's kind of my number one grade A, numero uno request is that they respect the source material, which I feel like they are.
Interesting.
I'm not all happy-go-lucky with it. I mean, it did start off a bit slow, but it's getting better for sure. Music is good, I think, and I mean, I think there is stuff to like. So far, I'm pleased, I guess I would say.
Okay, I'm a little surprised. I must admit,
it's a little slow though. I mean, it is picking up, especially by like you. Your cup, but it did start off a bit slow. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Mm-hmm. We're on this place. You know what kind of boggles my mind, Roz?
Oh, what's that, Steve?
A lot of these Star Warsy towns and villages, they're not that technically advanced. Like, they have all these like cool gadgets and stuff and spaceships. But they're all kind of like these ragtag towns.
Well, that's part of the art direction of Star Wars, Steve.
But this one, they kind of this one did give us something a bit different. It almost had a kind of like a Blade Runner feel to it.
It did in certain parts, yeah.
Yeah, which I liked.
Well, that's good. I'm actually really surprised that.
Oh, you're awesome.
Yeah, that you are enjoying it the way that you were describing it.
I thought it was going to be a whole movie that was out. I didn't think it was going to be a series until like recently.
There have been a number of different projects that I too have been a little confused on. Like, I thought that perhaps it would be a movie, and then it turns out to be a series instead. And I think that's mostly the case for me. Is like things that I thought, like, I know we were talking about, what was it, Ironheart earlier today or something like that. I thought that was a movie, but apparently it's a series. It's coming out on Disney Plus. So, yeah, interesting. Now, on my side of things, so far for me, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. And I've been able to make a list that I would like to go down with you to get your thoughts on it, especially now knowing that it sounds like you're, more or less enjoying the show.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So in my situation, I think from an art direction standpoint, it looks really nice. To your point, especially with the first episode, it had a lot of that Blade Runner vibe, which again, I'm not sure if I like. For what it is, I liked it, but I'm not sure if that necessarily fit within the Star Wars world. And this is kind of one of the ongoing things that I kind of found myself noticing again and again through all 3 episodes is each one of the episodes has a sci-fi aesthetic to it that I don't necessarily associate with Star Wars. So like Blade Runner was definitely with episode 1. And then like in episodes 2 and 3, it was kind of like maybe a Battlestar Galactica kind of look, or maybe like another type of futuristic sci-fi show where like you had all the elements together that like you would come to expect within a sci-fi show, but it didn't necessarily 100% feel like it fit within the world of Star Wars. And that's because Star Wars has its very own unique aesthetic. And for someone like me, like I found myself kind of wavering back and forth. Like certain scenes, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is totally Star Wars." And other scenes, I'm just like, I can't shake the feeling. Like like if this was like another show, like I said, like that was based off like an original IP or something like that, I'd be like, "Man, this is a cool show." But for some reason, like there was a little bit of a disconnect there. Did you notice that at all for yourself?
I did, but I will say also that we're not on, what is it, Tatooine?
Yes.
We're not in a desert.
Right.
And we're not on some like just rock planet desolate place. So we are seeing like different backdrops and stuff. And so, I mean, yes, it did have a different feel for sure. But I mean, I'm kind of thankful for that. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in the Star Wars films that we've had in the past, I mean, there are several planets that we go to and check. I mean, Naboo, for instance, was like a huge departure from Tatooine. So there is that, but I don't know. That was kind of one of the things that was a noticeable thingamajig for me. I was like, interesting. Now, for me though, for the first 3 episodes, honestly, I felt they were really slow.
The first 2 I thought were slow, but the third one, I mean, had some action in it.
Yeah, the third one actually it did start to have some action to it, which I was thankful for. And yeah, the third one is definitely the one that I like the best out of the first 3. But I'm just kind of surprised at how, for the most part, like all 3 episodes, really were kind of throwaway for me personally, in the sense that like I wasn't bonding with any of the characters. The story was kind of convoluted. Like I'm just like, what exactly are we trying to set up here? And I think that was kind of an issue. And it was like the episodes were trying to establish the main character, like where he is at this point in time, but at the same time do flashbacks to, I mean, I presume that was when he was a kid.
I'm guessing that's the same thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that's tying the 2 together.
Right.
So I'm thinking it was when he was a kid, because they make reference to his tribe, like the Canari, or I think it was called Canari.
I honestly, I didn't even pick that up. I was like, because the whole time I'm wondering like, who are these people? What is this tribe about? Whatever. I mean, his character's name, I think, is pronounced like Cassian or something like that. But yeah, like that was kind of one of the things that I was noticing. And there were instances where like the show was moving so slowly, I kind of almost like started like surfing the net a little bit. I was kind of, I was kind of doing what you sometimes do that you've told me in the past, where I'm just like, okay. And then all of a sudden something would pick up. It's like, oh, okay, let me see what's going on now. Which is surprising, because when I saw the trailer for this show, I was definitely into the trailer itself. I was like, okay, this is definitely something that is piquing my interest. Sure. I want to check this out. So
I think that's one of the reasons why they dropped 3 episodes at once, because if you watch the first episode,
you're just lost.
You're kind of lost. Like, okay, what's going on here? Like the first 10 minutes are pretty cool. Like they got your attention. And then we get the second episode, and it's shorter and not much happens in the second episode. So if they left that and you had to wait a week, your attention would have been waning and you would have thought, this is not really going anywhere.
Yeah.
But because they gave you the first 3 episodes to binge on and then they left off on like a high note, I thought, because of the action, basically.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I'm like, okay, I can wait a week for this, continue watching it. So I think that was probably purposeful.
Yeah.
To retain viewership.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking forward to like kind of going down this stuff and getting your take on this.
Sure, Russ.
One of the main things, and I'm just going to just be honest and just say this, is that I'm just not a big fan of Diego Luna's acting. Like nothing personal against him as an actor or anything, but like for me, he doesn't retain my interest. And I think it's kind of twofold in the sense that on the one hand, it's like I'm not, and this happened with Rogue One as well. I could not like get into his character. But I think the other problem is that the personality, the character that he's portraying is also one that I'm not a particular fan of when it comes to the Star Wars universe. And I sat there thinking about, I'm like, what is it about this? And I came up with the fact that like he comes across as kind of neurotic, a bit melancholy, just real agitated, edgy, that sort of thing, which I understand that like what they're going for in terms of his character. But when I thought about previous Star Wars characters, this is a departure from that. Like if you think about like Han Solo, for example, Han Solo was also a smuggler, right? But he was a scoundrel as well. Like he had the swagger, he had kind of the smart mouth. He was a survivor like Cassian is, but you can see what happens where like it's almost as if like if I were to have some sort of whiteboard up that shows Han Solo as like a character archetype for Star Wars, right? Like here's one of the personas that you'll meet as like the scoundrel class. And you'll see these different character attributes that are within the circle that says Han Solo, right? Well, if I start to take away certain attributes like, well, okay, so we know that he's a smuggler, right? Like that's his profession. That's what he does. And he's a survivor. But now we're going to take away his sense of humor. And now we're going to take away his swagger. And we're going to take away, some of these other things too. And you're essentially left with Cassian, who is a smuggler, who is a survivor, who's like constantly on the run, who's stealing stuff, selling it on the side,
but more vanilla.
But what I'm saying is like the actual like charisma is missing. It's gone. There's no charisma. There's no uptick to it. It's literally just this guy who's just putting on a lot of like, don't talk to me, fake angry poses. Like there's that one shot where like all he's doing is walking through a shipyard and he's staring at the camera trying to look tough and forlorn and stuff. And I'm just like, I'm just not into this character. And I had a feeling that this would be the case just because, like I said earlier, based off the Rogue One movie, that was the one character where I was like, I feel like it was kind of a miscast and I'm just not feeling it. So that was something I was thinking about because there are also other types of instances when I think of other characters, like Luke Skywalker, for example. Luke Skywalker is the main hero for the hero's journey, right? He's the farm boy. He's this idealistic, puts his faith in humanity and hope and does his civic duty, right? He's a Boy Scout. You think of Princess Leia, she's very independent. She's capable, but she also has a mouth on her and she's lovable. Like she's feisty, but in a lovable sense. Like there are all these positive attributes that have been associated. Chewbacca, another one where Chewie is just one of these like alien species. He's a Wookiee, right? Where he's really strong and tough and you don't want to get on his bad side. But at the same time, if you get on his good side, he's like this lovable puppy of a dog kind of thing. Yeah. Like he's totally lovable. And so if you keep going down, like Lando Calrissian, once again, like Lando Calrissian, he's a gambler. He's someone who's also, he's a scoundrel as well. He's a smuggler, everything else, but he has charm, doesn't he? He has like all these different, like likable.
Sure.
Types of personality traits that we can get behind. And so I think that's what I'm missing when I watch a show like this is that they seem to be going down this other type of path that has more of like a dystopian vibe, which again, this is actually, I'll say this really quick and then I'll let you respond. But, when I think about like Star Wars as a franchise or as like just an original IP, A New Hope came out in 1977. And the others hypes of like, futuristic sci-fi films that were released before Star Wars had more of like kind of a dystopian type vibe. It was very negative. It was definitely not like an exciting, happy or exciting place. It was kind of one that was just, mankind is barely surviving. It's like it has more of that like kind of real oppressive vibe and heavy and that sort of thing. And that's part of what I feel like contributed to Star Wars' success was that George Lucas approached his futuristic sci-fi movie from like a completely opposite end of the spectrum, and everybody could have more relatability as a result. But I'd like to hear what you think about this.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I'm not sure where they're. I felt that too with watching. What was it? Rogue One, I think it was. Yeah.
The full name was like Rogue One: A Star Wars Story.
Yeah. I guess I just kind of accept it because it's a new Star Wars story that's not one of the episodes. And so they're like, okay, well, this is what we're going to branch out and do. And so I thought, okay, well, this is the character, I guess, that we're going with. And there's nothing that really I dislike about him. But yes, he is kind of boring. I think he's a safe play, but he's not a strong personality type. And because he's not a strong personality type, I guess we all know somebody who's similar to him, but he doesn't stand out from the crowd as like, oh, that's my guy right over there. He's kind of like a wallflower in a way. So, yeah, I do hope that they flesh him out a bit more because, the kind of the same guy that we get here is the same guy that we get in Narcos Mexico. Like he acts the same.
Was he in Narcos?
He was in Narcos. Yeah, not Narcos with Pablo Escobar.
Okay.
But they continued a different series with.
He eventually joined the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I had no idea.
And I actually know who did join the show. Regular Narcos was the lady who in this show. They buy and sell parts and stuff, and she sort of has her little love interest on so the guy. So that lady was in Narcos season 1, and she played the reporter. Yes, the lady who was interviewing Pablo. Kind of got on his soft side a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, and I think if I am pronouncing her name correctly, it's Adria. Oh man,
you didn't pronounce it right, Russ.
Yeah, it's Adria Arjona. Her last name is nice. Arjona. So I don't know if it's
sure.
I don't think that's Arjona. I think it's Arjona. Adria Arjona.
If you were doing roll call. And like fifth grade,
if we could picture me being a teacher,
she'd have been like, "Yeah, no, it's me. Yeah,
yeah."
And you're trying to pronounce it. Yeah, I know. I'm here.
I'd be like, "Welcome to class."
Okay, next.
I'm working on my Espanol.
A few more weeks and I'll be fully bilingual.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of her, so she was one of the characters that I did like. Like there was her. There was also what was his name? Stellan Skarsgård, who plays basically the character that we see in episode 3 come in. He's the older gentleman with the blonde hair. I've always been a fan of his. I really like how he does his roles and stuff. And I think the character he plays at this point in time is interesting. I had Alex Ferns was another character or another actor, I should say, that was playing a character that I thought was interesting. I believe he was like kind of the sergeant at arms guy. He sounded like he was
Scottish or something. Yeah.
I really felt like he fit within the Star Wars universe really well. Like his look and how he carried himself and all. I mean, like even the fact that he was more, my understanding was like more of a like private security detail or something like that. But I was really glad at how, it wasn't like he was like some general in the Empire or a stormtrooper. That was the kind of originality that I really liked, and I totally bought into it. Like I really digged his screen presence.
You bring up a point that I wanted to talk to you about there, Will. I am happy that we're not seeing stormtroopers, at least not yet. Or we're not seeing anybody who's like dressed in black and, I'm a Sith or I'm a Darth something rather,
Yeah.
I'm glad we're not. I mean, I hope they don't like go there with this show because we've seen enough of that already. I'm kind of hoping they stay away. And as I understand it, which I could be wrong, either the Empire is not fully formed yet or all together.
My understanding is that in terms of the timeline, this show takes place before the happenings of Rogue One. So essentially, we're kind of seeing Cassian's not necessarily like origin story, but that's kind of what it is.
Kind of what it is.
So it's between it. I'm still thinking it's between episodes 3 and 4 because if you recall, at the end of Rogue One, it was basically like the very, very start of episode 4 where the Star Destroyer is chasing down the Corellian freighter, I think, frigate. Yeah.
Probably not freighter.
I think it's frigate.
Probably was frigate because freighter would be like hauling stuff. Hauling troops. So yeah, you're right. So then the Empire would have been formed, I guess,
Yeah. Basically at this time, this is like the strongest that. Well, before they have the Death Star anyway. I mean, basically, like, the Emperor has assumed total control. The Jedi have lost. I want to say it's probably within that same time frame as Obi-Wan that we watched the Disney Plus show of.
But after episode 3. Pre-episode 4, but still after episode 3.
Yeah.
On the
it's that
timeline
whole, like,
of events.
It's that 20-year period between episode 3 and 4.
Yeah, I guess that would have been
Yeah.
Chronological.
Indeed.
Chronology.
Yes.
Fascinating stuff for us. Anyway.
Now, another thing I wanted to pick your brain about is...
Careful what you find in there, Russ. Yeah, might have to put it back.
I have also thought about... There's this... How do you say it? How do I describe this, Steve? Essentially, I have had an epiphany with regards to how Star Wars used to be versus when Disney bought Star Wars and Lucasfilm and all that kind of stuff.
Good old days.
So essentially, like it's like you have Star Wars and then you have Disney Star Wars. That's like the most simplistic way I can describe this, where episodes 1 through 6, essentially. You have episodes 4, 5, and 6, and you have the prequels 1, 2, and 3. That was done by George Lucas. And then you have Disney acquiring Lucasfilm and them doing 7, 8, 9, plus Rogue One and all the Star Wars stuff. Am I missing any films that they've done? Oh, well, they also did Solo, a Star Wars story.
Pass on that one.
I thought that one was actually pretty good for the most part.
Pass on that one, man. No, thank you.
But anyway, what I'm getting at is I'm noticing a difference between the two camps. And that is like when you watch episodes 4 through 6, like that was like the OG Star Wars. That's what put Star Wars on the map, that sort of thing.
Right.
But in terms of how things were shot, who they hired for the roles, how those characters were portrayed, and the overall story was definitely different than that of how Disney has approached Star Wars itself.
You're just not noticing that, Russ?
It's been something I feel like it's been creeping up on me over a while now, but I just really haven't stopped to kind of, obviously it's like, when Disney acquired the IP and everything else, it's like, but I always had kind of the mindset of like, okay, well, they're going to act as custodians of this IP, right? They're going to try and adhere to what George Lucas has already done. And in some ways, I think they have done a decent job of that. But in others, I think that they've really not done as good of a job.
Rather bollocksed it up a bit, eh?
What do you think?
No, I've been saying for years. Glad you're finally coming around. Yeah, the whole thing feels different. It doesn't feel like it's. I mean, if you strip off LucasArts and just throw it in, throw it on.
Where's the censored bars when you need them?
Trying to say something.
Sorry, go ahead.
And you take off this LucasArts, Russ. You peel off the decal. It's still a science fiction flick, but it doesn't feel like Star Wars, Russ. I mean, I've been saying like there's no really cool spaceships anymore. I mean, Lucas just had imagination, and Disney has really kind of lost their imagination, and they're just saying, "Hey, we can make money off this. We're gonna take that and we're gonna milk it till its last drop." And that's how it feels for the most part, for the great majority of all the stuff that they have. I'm concentrating on Star Wars right now. Not going to get into the other ones, but it feels like with a lot of the stuff they release, they are milking it to the last drop and not precisely making like art that we would enjoy for decades, like Lucasfilm did.
And we have discussed that before in the past about how there's been this shift between, how it used to be more fandom based and now it's more consumerism where it's like, well, how much merchandise can we make off this and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's no surprise whatsoever. I do think also there's been kind of this ping ponging back and forth between like Mandalorian comes out and we both really like Mandalorian, right? But then they have other shows that come out and we're like, well, that's not, like Boba Fett, for example, like it was okay, but it really paled in comparison to like the Mandalorian show.
Right. Well, it's like they had material to work with, but they didn't hire like the right people to write it or almost direct it. And so what we had was like, okay, that's a great idea. And it started to fall flat.
Yeah.
I mean, there was parts of Boba Fett that I really enjoyed. And then you got to the later parts where like the gang didn't make sense and the mopeds didn't make sense. And
the Vespas.
Like the space Vespas. And like, okay, and then that starts to dilute the story and what they're trying to get us on board with, essentially. And like, who's choosing this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. But then you get people like Favreau directing it, and he's got like totally clear on the concept.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems as though they're kind of hard up to try and find directors who have a better understanding of the source material, basically.
I would think that's not that hard to find. I mean, because like, try and find somebody who doesn't have like a positive opinion of Star Wars, or who's a fan, or a collection, a hive of people who go, I've read the books, I've read the comics. I mean, I didn't, so they wouldn't pick me. Yeah. But I mean, there's tons of people who have, and they know the story, and they know what the rest of the fans would like to see on screen. Like, I would think there would be tons of people out there who could bring a lot to the table.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that Disney seems to pick a few names that are maybe popular around their close circle, and they go, "Hey, we're gonna give this to you to work something on," and they don't really care. Yeah. Honestly, it just doesn't feel like they care 100%.
I keep saying they should hire Steven Spielberg because I feel like if someone knows how George Lucas shoots Star Wars, and especially because he's been around George, I mean, George had Steven Spielberg come over for like an early cut of Star Wars back before it was released in 1977. I mean, like he's been good friends with George Lucas for a long time, and the man makes outstanding movies. So it's like, if there was someone who I feel like could do a fantastic job, it would be him. But pivoting off from that though, like going back to Andor itself, I also found myself thinking about, okay, the place that these episodes are mainly taking place at.
Right.
It's this big shipwreck yard, right, where they're dismantling these huge frigate ships and that sort of thing. Well, it reminded me of Star Wars. What was it, Star Wars Fallen Jedi, I think it was called.
Yes.
By Respawn Entertainment.
Sure.
Terrific game.
Fallen Order.
Fantastic game. I think it was Fallen Jedi.
Fallen Order, something like that. Fallen Order. Fallen Jedi. Jedi fallen down.
Jedi fallen down, can't get back up. Help me, I've fallen, can't get up. But anyway, if you recall, the very first level of that game, you are actually making your way through a very similar place with big shipyards. You have like huge Star Destroyers that they're like, breaking down slowly but surely, and you're making your way through the wreckage. And I think this is a good case study in a sense that the game really did a good job of capturing the world of Star Wars. Like if you look at how they portrayed everything, everything was extremely strong compositionally. The different types of like you see a mound of like old Stormtrooper helmets that they're collecting among the wreckage and that sort of thing. Everything about that, including the main character that you're playing as you're making your way through the wreckage, it really had that Star Wars spirit to the whole thing. When I watch this show and you have those moments in the shipwreck yard or whatever you want to call it, certain parts I felt, it felt somewhat Star Wars, but a lot of it, again, it just didn't have that Star Wars spirit to it. It felt like I was watching another sci-fi movie. It's a funny thing to take a look at that. But I mean, do you draw any of those same comparisons between the game and the show?
I drew a comparison with the game. Actually, I think I saw one of the ships, and it looked like I think it was actually a ship from what was the space shooter game that came out where you could fly an X-wing, you could fly a TIE fighter, you could fly A-wing. Fly the different ships. It came out a couple years ago. But anyhow, there was one of the ships that looked exactly like it was from that game, and then it took off and it looked totally different. But yeah, I was actually wondering, like, are we going to see a BB-8, like, or no, a BD-1? That's what it was. A BD-1 pop up out of nowhere. Like, what are we going to see? And I think actually they I mean, I'm just guessing here, but I mean, I would think they drew some inspiration from that game. The game was awesome.
Yeah, I have no idea, but yeah, I thought that was one of the things that definitely popped in my head. I was thinking about, another thing that I'm noticing, and this is becoming kind of like it's just kind of frustrating as a viewer watching this.
Okay,
within the Disney Star Wars movies and TV shows, they keep. How do I say this? It's like basically like they have essentially manifested their own trope within the films and shows that they have made as it applies to Star Wars. And what I'm specifically talking about is their use of white males in their show. So like if you are a young white male in a Disney Star Wars film, I would say 9 times out of 10, you're evil. Like if you're part of the First Order, or if you're like in this one, for instance, like there was like kind of that love interest that the guy had with the girl who like had the hookup, and like, he basically
ratted him out.
Yeah. Like messed up the whole thing. And then, and then the other side of the trope is that if you are like a elderly white male, then you're considered a good guy, but you're on your way out. And we've seen this kind of rinse and repeat through multiple Disney Star Wars efforts. And I don't know. I just feel like it's just kind of run its course. Like it's getting kind of old, where I just want to like write to Kathleen Kennedy and just be like, we're not all bad, you can post, people who look like this, like, in like a starring role if you want to, just saying. But did you notice that in this show as well?
I did not notice it that much. Honestly, my brain was a bit turned off. So I mean, like, I have noticed it. Like this show aside, I have definitely noticed it. Disney and beyond. I mean, Disney, Amazon. I haven't had Netflix in a while, but I probably Netflix a little bit too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure if it's just like a trend in kind of Hollywood right now to do that. I don't know. It'll pass. I'm thinking, but I had noticed that before.
Yes. Yes, indeed, Steve. Yes. And to, be completely, more specific or accurate. I'm not saying like all the characters have to be Caucasian male. I'm just saying
sure, Russ.
Can we have like one? Is it okay? Can we have one?
One good guy?
don't know. It's like if you noticed in these first 3 episodes, like you have the band of kids, right?
Yeah.
They're going to see the downed craft, and they see like these, I don't know, the people from the downed spaceship, and they're kind of like the white males, and like you have these kids doing their thing, and then like one of them like gets up, he's like, oh, and he starts shooting at him and stuff, and kills the one girl, and then they like fill his back up with a bunch of sleepy time darts. Peace. So yeah, I mean there are multiple instances of this where it's throughout just the first 3 episodes, and then not only that, but then also like I said earlier, some of the other films that they've done and stuff. I'm just like, I'm seeing a pattern here. Like, well, why are we constantly? Why is this like the go-to now or what? But anyway,
I think it was a bit the same with Obi-Wan almost. I kind of had that feeling with Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Just a teensy bit.
A smidge.
Another observation that I had with regards to the 3 episodes is, in an opportunity like this, you can introduce brand new characters, right? Mm-hmm. One of the areas that I think has been overlooked so far in the show is the absence of new alien characters. Like if you think about like when you watch Star Wars A New Hope, for instance, like you had Chewbacca, who was a Wookiee. He's an alien species, right? If you watched Return of the Jedi and you watch like Lando Calrissian flying the Millennium Falcon into the Death Star, and he had his alien co-pilot buddy next to him, or the Ewoks on Endor, or like even in the prequels where you had like Jar Jar Binks, even though the character was totally annoying, there was like this effort or emphasis to have various types of alien characters that made up kind of the motley crew of different encounters.
That is true, Russ. The show ain't over yet.
So
we still got 9 more. Doing my math here, we saw 3.
I believe you are correct.
9 more episodes, but that has been a thing for a while. Like I was, what was it? It was, I think it was Mandalorian, where we had, you're going to remember the name. I can't remember the name, but remember the duel with in the desert, and they had the guy with the sharp teeth?
Are you talking about Darth Maul?
No. He didn't, bro, there was no duel in the desert with
there was.
Darth Maul.
Yeah. In episode 1, like there was a duel with Qui-Gon Jinn in the desert, and then Qui-Gon Jinn like jumped up on the ship and escaped.
But I'm talking Mandalorian.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So anyhow, there was that dude who was an alien who was speaking English and could really draw a weapon. But other than that, I think they're just going with...
Oh, are you talking about the... Oh, yeah. No, you're talking about Boba Fett, not Mandalorian.
Was it any Boba Fett?
Boba Fett was the one that had Cad Bane. Was that who you're talking about? Like the really cool looking gunslinger?
Yeah, but I thought he killed one of the characters in The Mandalorian who was in charge of that, who was the sheriff in that town.
Yes, that is Boba Fett, Steve. Because if you recall, Mando ended up making an appearance in Boba Fett. He was helping Boba Fett.
That's probably how I crossed those lines. Anyway,
that's why I'm here, Steve.
Beyond that, there hasn't really been any other like brand new alien. They're just going with basically what is
already
safe.
established.
Yeah, already established or safe. Yeah.
And see, even in Cad Bane's case, that character was debuted on Star Wars Clone Wars. This was not like, oh, we're making this character specifically for Boba Fett for like the big first appearance. So yeah, I mean, even that character doesn't count with what we're talking about, which is that, I would love to see brand new alien species characters that are able to make certain types of appearances. I mean, even in Boba Fett, you also had another Wookiee. It was kind of more of a gladiator style Wookiee, which, even though like we've seen a Wookiee before, it was nice to see, another character.
Right. But it wasn't a different.
It was, I can never pronounce this particular character's name, so I'm not going to try.
Thanks you for cutting me off to say that you're never going to try to say their name. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I just think they're going with what's safe for us. I mean, even then. Oh man, you got me thinking about what the name is. Freaking A. So, but he was also a Wookiee.
Yes.
It was like Chewbacca. So it was safe in the fact that, oh, here's another Wookiee and he's strong.
But it was cool to see that on screen, wasn't it?
It was cool, but it was nothing different.
Because like in Andor, what we're seeing right now are just basically humans and a few droids. Like we haven't
saw the big guy who was bland, but I mean, he was the big strong guy. He looks back up at him. He's like, what are you doing?
That was cool. I like that. That was actually one of my favorite parts of the 3 episodes, specifically because that was like a new type of alien species, whatever. And I don't know if that was just kind of like a little bit part for the gag or like we're going to see that alien come back or whatever. That was definitely cool. I'm glad that you pointed that out.
You're welcome. What else you got on that list, Russ?
Let me take a little look here. So the other thing I had written down here too is that Cassian's backstory, to me, it's not holding my interest. And I think part of the problem is that they're trying to build mystique around the backstory itself. But the problem is that there's no hook, right? Like I keep seeing kind of like these, merry band, almost like a Star Wars version of the Lost Boys from Peter Pan, but they're not just boys, there are girls in there as well. And so we just, they're kind of dressed in these Rebel Alliance fatigues or something. They got kind of the little tattered orange jumpsuits and yellow suits and stuff. And so like the whole time, of course, it makes us wonder like, oh, I wonder where these, teenagers and kids came from. Clearly there are no adults around where they are. They're scavengers, that sort of thing. Did they grow up on this planet? Are they just like scavenging? Did they get their clothes from like say previous other spaceships that have crash landed, and is that how they get their stuff and how they survive? They clearly do not speak English. They have their own dialect that they use.
Yeah, not from America.
No.
Not from the US of A.
No. So, but looking at every time that we go back to that, we see it and we see what they're doing and that sort of thing. I don't know, like it just doesn't capture my imagination. It doesn't capture my attention. I find myself just kind of counting down the seconds until we get back to present day with Cassian and Andor and what's going on.
Well, I gotta think they're doing something with it. I mean,
of course,
I would say so. If it was only 6 episodes long, which that's kind of been the running theme of these Disney Plus shows, like, oh, here's 6 episodes and 4 out of the 6 are going to be boring. We're going to make you sit through 4 episodes until like the good stuff, which is going to be like just like the last 2, maybe even just like the last one. But since there's 12, I got to think that they're going to be doing something more with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I was really happy to find out from you that instead of the typical average like 6 episodes at Disney Plus green lights, we have twice as many episodes. So I'm like, ooh, okay. Yeah. And even when we were watching the official trailer for the show, there are several scenes and other characters that we have yet to be introduced to that definitely piqued my interest. So as far as I'm concerned, like I'm not ruling like the show out. It's this weird situation where like almost every Disney Plus TV show that we have watched, the first 3 episodes are always really boring and like you kind of almost feel like you're on the cusp of losing interest, and then all of a sudden like it starts to have this upward motion that we've seen in so many different instances. And then, of course, like, the last episode or whatever, they usually have some kind of big surprise aha moment or whatever. And that's great. That's a lot of fun. But in this type of instance, when it comes to 12 episodes, but furthermore, even having those 3 episodes, I just wish that they could be more successful in hitting the ground running with that very first episode and not stopping until the end of the season.
True, Russ. They may have stretched it a bit. They may have stretched it a little bit. Like the second episode was a bit of a throwaway, I think it was only like 37 minutes long, maybe less. But
Yeah, I think you're right.
anyhow, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Anyway, I mean, compared to there's plenty of other stuff that we've got. I think this one, I'm keeping my hopes up.
Well, that's cool because normally you're not that type of outlook when it comes to the other Star Wars.
I just feel like since this one's so different than the past ones that we've received, that I have my hopes up, and it doesn't seem like it's just so silly. I mean, Obi-Wan I thought was silly. I thought it was kind of a throwaway series. I really didn't care for Obi-Wan all that. I mean, I think you did. I really didn't really care for it.
I didn't care for the first half. The first half was, again, it was like slow, and it's like you can tell they were wanting to do character development, and they decided to go with the slow burn approach. But honestly, like, I really didn't get into it till about episode 3. Like, there were 6 episodes, and then especially with episode 4, like, you had 4, 5, and 6 were, in my opinion, great. And episodes 1, 2, and 3, I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is not very good.
Yeah.
So
kind of canceled each other out.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I'm just, again, it's a head scratcher, right? It's like you wonder, why is it that I would say, with the exception of perhaps Mandalorian, because Mandalorian is one of those success stories where, like, from episode 1 until the final episode in every season, it's been fantastic. I just don't understand in these other instances, why is it that they seem to struggle with building on that character development, have that exposition, but do so in a way that hooks us.
Writing and direction, Russ.
Indeed.
Writing and direction.
Did you have any final thoughts, Steve?
No, I think that was my final thought, Russ. I'm not like I said in the beginning. I'm happy with it. I'm not overjoyed. I think what we have so far is good. And I'm looking forward to continuing the show, and I hope it gets better, or at least I hope it maintains this level. If they just do maintain this level, I'm gonna be happy.
Right on.
If it falls, I'll be sad.
Sure.
But I'm looking forward to continuing it.
Well, that's very nice, Steve. That's encouraging. And I myself also am definitely not throwing in the towel. It's because I think I've been conditioned now to understand the first 3 episodes are just, they are the way they are. I'm going to continue to have an open mind and look and see what they do with the show for the remaining 9 episodes. And so, I don't know. I could be singing its praises before long. But that wraps up this particular episode of Joygasm. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, where you can enjoy exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it continues financially helping us do the podcast. Also, make sure you click on that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. That way you will not miss a single episode of Joygasm. It drops once a week every week. And while you're at it, you can also do a search for @Joygasm TV on your favorite social media platform of choice and join the Joygasm community. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Last but not least, do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. May the Force be with you all, and we'll catch you next week.